Here we go, folks. We are live. Jeremy Brand, Tim Wheaton, MMAsucka.com. UFC 263 preview. We haven't done one of these for quite some time. We haven't been live over on our YouTube channel for ages. And you know what? We are. Why? Because we want to. And we want to bring it back, and we want to get you guys involved. So if you guys are joining us live over here, then comment, like it. Get interactive with us. Just let's have some fun. Tim, thank you so much for joining me today, man.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Of all the cards that we can break down, I think this is a really good one. It's got some intriguing fights on it, some interesting storylines going in, and some interesting coming out. But no, absolute pleasure to be here.
For sure, man. Now, before we get into the card, this is the first time I've been joined by you on a live stream or even a podcast or anything like that. You've been with MMAsucka.com, dabbling in the writing scene behind the scenes and posting it over on the site for quite some time now. But I don't really know your story, man. Just tell me how you got into mixed martial arts, how you got into MMA and journalism as a whole.
No, thanks for asking. Yeah, been writing with you guys for about 6 months, dabbled on the side, did a couple other websites here and there. There's lots of Tim content out in the world. I think this is my 6th podcast in 6 days that I've done this week. So there's lots of Tim to go around. I was actually a tough noob back in the day. If you remember on the forums, that's what everyone called the kids who were coming in on the Ultimate Fighter. As soon as I got into tough, turned around, started watching Pride, and like, you can usually tell someone's MMA age by who their favorite fighter is. Like someone like Jeff, you know what I mean? Jeff Sherwood, favorite fighter was like Jose Landy Jones, if you remember that guy back in the day. My favorite fighter was
dude. He trained up here in BC. Actually, he trained with Revolution Fight Team and Bibiano Fernandez and those guys.
Man, he is as OG as it gets, right? He's been around this sport forever. He fought Valet Tudo with Chuck back in the day. Yeah, he's a bit of a legend. But yeah, my favorite fighter was Shogun Hua and Fedor Emelianenko, and it's been a tough few years being a Shogun fan, as I'm sure you can understand. But no, I got into my normal life is financial planning, and then moved here to the UK, and then got into. I was watching every event. I was watching one, and then I was watching like PFL, and then I was watching KSW and the UFC, and I was like, man, I might as well get paid for doing this. So now I'm here writing MMA articles. But yeah, what about yourself, Jeremy? I mean, everyone kind of knows you, but what's your story?
Well, maybe not everyone watching this right now knows my story, but yeah, I'm not a tough noob. I've been around since the get-go. Actually, my buddy, growing up, UFC 1 we watched, he goes, dude, you got to come over, man. And it was in his basement on one of those old school black boxes, like a descrambler was what it was called back then. And we would watch everything from the WWF back then events, WrestleMania and all that. And he goes, dude, there's this thing coming up. It's called UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship. You got to check it out. So we went over, pizza and all that kind of stuff. And we were like, jaw dropped when we watched the event, because it was no holds barred back then, like guys' ponytails getting ripped out and everything. It was insane. So I watched UFC 1 live. I believe I watched UFC 2 live as well, and then there was a few gap years there where I just rented them on VHS and wasn't able to watch them live. But then I came back into it, obviously, with the Chuck and Tito era and Ultimate Fighter and all that stuff. And I've been grinding. And in 2009, my wife was pregnant and she wanted to start a baking business. And so I created this website for her baking business on iWeb, which was an old school Mac web developing software, which was just garbage, and it was easy. It was easy. Yeah, it was easy to use, and it was free, and all you had to do was click publish and drag and drop and stuff like that. And so I made that, and I thought, hey, how easy is that? And I was a huge MMA fan, so I made this website, and it was like iweb.mmasucka.com or something like that, or whatever. And I came up with the name because I was a giant Mr. T fan, and there was, MMA Junkie and MMA Fighting. And I thought, okay, let's come up with something different. Now, the name hasn't been everyone's favorite. We get knocked on it quite a bit, but it's going nowhere because, what you talking about, sucker? You know what I mean? Like, it's out there. It's a name that people can remember. They can call you a sucker if they want, but whatever. The name is there. Needless to say, the baking website is no longer. MMA Sucka is 12, 13 years old. The very first article that I wrote about was hilarious. It was Dana White's favorite razor, which I think I saw him post about on Twitter. It was like a Hydro Chic or something like that. That's what he shaved his head with. But man, we have grown from there, and yeah, that's how the website was built, and up and down and up and down and up and down. We've come all over the place from that time. But yeah, so this weekend we've come a long way. We've got 2 rematches. We've got UFC 263. We've got the main event between Israel Adesanya and Marvin Vettori. The first match was interesting, very close. Vettori thought he won. Adesanya came away with the victory. Co-main event, we've got the flyweight rematch between Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. Another close matchup in their first one. And then the match that could probably be the one that everyone is looking forward to most, Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz in his return to the octagon. Before we get into those fights, now I said we would talk the top 3 because those are obviously the ones that everyone is talking about. But this card is stacked, top to bottom, all the way down to the very first fight on the card with Carlos Felipe and Jake Collier. Because, man, who doesn't love to start a card with heavyweights? That's a fun fight. The fight that I'm looking forward to most, and the most intriguing fight to me, and I'm part of this thing called Last One Standing. It's basically a survivor pool. It's on Twitter, and a local guy, or not a local guy, but an MMA guy who used to actually write for MMAsucka.com, and he writes about prospects and all this kind of stuff. He runs it, and it's a huge, there's like 60, 70 guys in the Last One Standing tournament, and I'm down to 1 pick left. You get 3 picks to start, and when you lose guys, you lose them, and last weekend I lost 2 guys. But if you pick an underdog and they win, they have to be a plus 150 or higher. You get an extra pick. So this weekend, the fight that I'm most intrigued about is Paul Craig, Jamahal Hill. And now I'm not necessarily locked on my pick, but Hill has always been a guy that I think is a little higher than what his ranking and his record states. I've never been a huge fan, but the guy constantly surprises me. Needless to say, I picked Paul Craig as an upset in this one. Now, I don't know what you think about this fight. Are you a Hill fan? Do you believe he gets this one done? 8-0, I understand. His rankings are going up and up and up, and he keeps surprising. The guy puts his chin out there, he can get hit, but Craig also has like, an iffy chin. How do you see this fight playing out?
No, and I agree with you on your assessment of it's a little bit tough to judge. And where the UFC light heavyweight division currently is, this is a very exemplary fight of that, of like 2 guys where we're both a little bit suspect, but they're both kind of good, but, they have some flaws.
Kinda
definitely
good.
In this fight, yeah, right. I would definitely be picking Hill in this fight, but that has more to do with I don't have a lot. I don't want to be rude, but I don't have a lot of faith in Paul Craig. I don't know how talented of a fighter he is. He gets away with his size. He gets away with he's got a couple of triangles off his back, and that's really cool. But in terms of he wins a fight because he's the better fighter, I usually just won't pick him based on that. I think Jamal Hill has, you know what I mean? I think Hill is the right pick. He's got some tight 1-2 low kick combinations. I think he's just kind of the fighter where he has he can continue to get better. In a southpaw orthodox matchup, he's a southpaw. He might have a lot more experience. And for that, I think Hill is a safe bet in this case.
Well, I'm hoping you're wrong.
Yeah, you're picking Craig.
He's my underdog pick. I need to get an extra pick back. I didn't want to play it safe. I'm looking at the odds. I mean, there are a lot of underdogs. We could get into the Nate Diaz-Leon Edwards fight, but we'll save that for a little bit. Now, Paul Craig is a plus 220 over at bestfightodds.com, which is a big one. But again, I have to be plus 150 or higher to gain a pick back. Now, if I'm looking at these odds, okay, so not the first fight, not the second fight, not the third fight. The next closest at a plus 185 is McKinney. Now, that could play. Then Alexis Davis at plus 190. Now she could grind her way to a victory. I highly doubt it. Duwadu is always a possibility, but look at who the hell he's fighting.
Yeah, I like Doadu. I've met him in a Muay Thai class over in Calgary,
Yeah.
and as in like I was at the beginners class, and he was actually doing Muay Thai. Was how we met.
That's
He's got
hilarious.
some. I know he's got he's a good size for that weight class, and he's really good on the outside. It's his distance and clinch managing that he usually kind of struggles with,
Yeah.
and for that, like he's a really good developing fighter. It's just a matter of is he developed enough to win this fight? I would pick Hakeem because I'm loyal like that, but I don't know. What do you see in this one?
Ah, man, Mofsar is so good, and I mean, the fact that he can get in there and if he can close the distance on Hakeem, then this fight's over. I don't think he'll finish him. Now his chin can be suspect if he gets clipped, but I don't see Movsar uh, clipping him at any point. I see him closing the distance, grinding away a decision victory, maybe even like a 30-25 victory if he can grind his way to that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just see him as that kind of guy, just gritty, getting in there, pushing the pace, getting him up against the cage, pulling away his legs, and just like grinding on the ground. A very slow but methodical pace to that fight, but not landing a ton of strikes, just getting the job done decisively. Now, if you look over this card, other than the top three that we were talking about, the
Mm-hmm.
what is your favorite fight on the card that you're looking forward to most?
It's it's Lauren Murphy and Joanne Calderwood. Not
Yeah.
because I'm going to say this is going to be an amazing fight. This is going to be like the best fight on the card. But this really shows how good that women's flyweight division is because this is the top contender for Valentina Shevchenko. And I think Valentina may be able to do quite well against both of these fighters if they fought on the same night, kind of thing. And that's the reason I'm saying make sure to watch this fight. This is the next fight for Valentina. I'll pick JoJo by a tight, a split decision or something like that. But I don't know. What do you see? What do you think in this fight? What's the future hold for these two?
I actually really like this fight as well. And you know what? JoJo was a favorite when she was on Tough. She was like the number one ranked fighter in the division coming in to that show. JoJo has been one of my favorite fighters. John Wood is actually doing really well with her. Splitting, boyfriend duties and fighting duties, but or coaching duties, but he's done well with her, and I think that we're going to see a growth in her striking in this fight. Lauren Murphy can take a punch and just keep on coming. It's cool that she's on this card. Um, you know, she's a forward pressure fighter. She's been in there with some of the best in the world. But I agree with you in this one. I think JoJo gets the job done. And as you said, it could be the next challenger for the title. They're ranked 5 and 6, something like that, I believe. And they're top of the cream of the crop at the division.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be tight. I don't see a finish by any means. Yeah,
No.
unless you're the top in the women's divisions, like the Amanda Nunez, the Shevchenkos, the Weili Zhang, the Rose, we don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily see a ton of finishes. And it's nothing against them, but it's just that they're so competitive and they're so close and so tightly matched. I see JoJo getting the job done in this one with a decision victory. It's a fun fight. I'm, as I said, the fight that I'm looking forward to most is just due to the fact that I have so much lying on it with this. Like the winner of the survivor pool, I think takes home $900 or something like that.
Ooh,
But
that's good. That's good money.
and it's season 4 of this, I believe, season 4, season 5 or something. I split season 3 or season four's pot with a guy because we wanted to get the season over and done with and move on to the next one. But the last season took 3 months to finish. So like how many UFC events? Sometimes there's 4, sometimes there's even more. But so it goes for every UFC card. I'm gonna hit you up and tell you about the next one because maybe you might want to get involved in it. It's quite fun. There are a ton
Yeah,
of
sounds good.
fights on this card that are fun matchups as well. Like Eric Anders, Darren Stewart is a fun matchup. Drew Dover, Brad Riddle, that's a fun matchup. And let's talk about this matchup on the main card before we get to the top three. Damian Maya, Bilal Muhammad. This one, as big an underdog as Damian Maia is in this, is this fight like made for him almost? Like, could he get in there, grind away against the cage, get that typical Damian Maia takedown, and tap Bilal Muhammad out? Like, I I don't see it happening, but envisioning the way this fight could play out, Bilal should get the job done. Bilal should finish him, maybe even knock him out, but it could play in Damian Maia's favor.
This is a very much UFC matchmaking style of thing of like you have the young up and comer and they're trying to make a name for him. So we're going to throw an old veteran to the underdog. There's no easy fights in the UFC is what they always say. So they're putting Damian Maia out for slaughter in this fight. But I can absolutely see Damian Maia winning this fight. He does positional grappling on the ground extremely well. He can advance to submissions. He doesn't even always need a takedown to get a submission. He can do it standing. But Damian Maia, regardless of this match, he has an extremely good legacy in the UFC. He has the second most, for sure. He has the second most wins, only behind Donald Cerrone. If he wins this fight, he's tied with Donald Cerrone for most wins in UFC history. And also, if you made a list of the worst fights in UFC history, Damian Maia would have 2 of them.
So he's got awards on both sides.
You got it. But I would pick Maia. I think that's a safe bet. I think he can absolutely win this fight.
Looking over at the chat here, Mom's Basement MMA has something for you. He goes, wrong again, Tim. Lucky gonna win. Comment to that one, Tim?
Man, Mom's Basement MMA is a cool dude. We got an avatar bet going in next week on the Instagram, and then we're doing a podcast together next week. So he's a good guy. He just comes. He just hates me is the thing. He just disagrees with everything I say. But definitely check him out, you guys. Mom's Basement MMA is a good boy.
I love it. I love it. All right, let's get into it. The top 3 fights of the weekend coming in here. Leon Edwards, Nate Diaz. Diaz returning to the octagon for the first time since the BMF title fight, taking on Leon Edwards, who was out of action for a long time, and then a damn eye poke. What a way to make a return to the cage. I don't know about this one, man. I don't know. I'm going to let you lead the way. I'm going to let you talk and tell me how you see this one playing out.
Well, then I'll sell you on Leon Edwards if you're a little bit in the middle. So he is a guy.
Don't be a UK guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So he's a guy who's figured out what he does well and then has figured out how to apply it in every situation. He has a really good 1-2 and a really good low kick, and he just knows how to apply that 1-2. He can do a hook 1-2. He can do an elbow 1-2. He can do a lean back 1-2. He can do a set a trap and then land a 1-2. He's just figured out this one thing that he's amazing at and can land it from almost any position. But what his best weapon is the clinch to elbow. And this is what This is what he did against RDA in another southpaw versus southpaw matchup. RDA is another aggressive forward striker, and what he did constantly against RDA was close the distance and then land elbows from the clinch. And he's cut everybody with this elbow. The biggest thing, and you saw me put it down on the spreadsheet on our picks of, I see this as a doctor stoppage due to cut. Nate Diaz is a really good aggressive fighter. I don't know where he's at. I always picture him of like in his prime fighting Donald Cerrone when he set the record for most strikes. I don't know where he's at in terms of his physical prime right now, but he has a lot of scar tissue on his face that can easily be opened up. Even if he's winning 4 rounds, he might just lose via cut in the 5th round kind of thing. That's how I'm seeing it, but it's a fun matchup. What do you see?
Yeah, so doctor stoppage is a good play because, that's the way we saw Jorge Masvidal get it done. Scar tissue, like you say, is at play. If the doctor doesn't stop it because of cuts, I see Leon Edwards winning round 1. I see Leon Edwards winning round 2. But the more Nate Diaz gets punched and punished, the better he gets. And that's the problem that comes into play for Diaz on both sides of the puzzle, is he gets better when he gets punished, but then the doctor stoppage can come into play like you're saying. So how do I think this one plays out? I think Nate Diaz is going to take a decision. And I think it's the pressure. If he is on his back foot, like you're saying could be the case because Leon Edwards is so good at closing the distance and in that clinch and landing those elbows on the break, then it could be tough for Diaz, but I see him utilizing his reach. I see him pitter-pattering him, sort of the way his brother was so famous for doing, just those little long punches from the outside where he just touches the guy. He doesn't necessarily hurt him. He doesn't necessarily cut him up or rock him or anything, but it's the pitter-patter, the frustrating little punches at the end of his shot that I think is going to get the judge's decision in this one. And not necessarily what's it mean, what's it do, but where does Leon Edwards go, Tim, if he loses this fight?
So that's the weird part. This is such a weird fight in that. No, I don't think Nate Diaz is a bad pick here. I think that's a safe enough pick. But that's the weird thing. So on a win, they've said Leon Edwards gets a crack at the title.
Yes.
Which makes sense. He would be on a 9-fight win streak, almost 10-fight win streak with a no contest in there. That makes sense. And he's a big guy. He could maybe get mauled by Kamaru Usman, but not embarrassed, kind of thing. Nathan Diaz, they've also said on a win, he's unranked at welterweight. He's a career lightweight. On a win, this guy would also get a crack at the title. And Nate Diaz wouldn't be able to touch Kamaru Usman. I don't want to be rude, but that's just not a fair fight. But on a loss, Leon Edwards, goes back and fights like Vicente Luque again to try to build him up or something like that. He's crawled his way to the top of the division. He's beaten everybody they put in front of him. The fights that he didn't take really weren't his fault. That was during COVID. But you fight. He's a big guy for this weight class. He beats most of the guys in the bottom of the top 10, probably. What do you see for these guys' future?
It's tough to say. Now, obviously, Leon Edwards gets it done. I mean, he expected a title shot off of that last one, the no contest. This one is a money fight for sure. It's where do they go? Nate Diaz, I don't know. Maybe if he doesn't win this fight, he retires. He leaves the octagon. He's finished with his career. He's made money. He likes to go smoke pot. Hell, he smoked pot at the press conference, which was pretty awesome. Which was pretty awesome. I don't know what Diaz does with a loss here. I know what he does with a win, and he just keeps pushing forward. Maybe they do a BMF title fight again with someone. I'm not sure what the hell the deal with that belt is. Are they going to do it at different weight classes? Jorge Masvidal is not defending it by any means. So what's the deal with that? But Leon Edwards with a win, he definitely gets a title shot. With a loss, that's where things get tricky. I don't know what happens to him. He's not dropping down a ton. He's going to have to win maybe 2, maybe 3 more to get a title shot. He is big for the division, like you say, which is in his favor. Kamaru's huge too, though. Yes. So I don't know where either of these guys go. I have no clue. That's the cool thing about this division. Did maybe a Darren Till fight? I don't know. I'm so. For Diaz, I think he's off the radar if he loses this fight. He's a money fight for anybody. That's where it goes. There's no title. It's money. But Leon Edwards is looking for that belt. I don't think he's looking for the money, but right now, I think he's looking for a title. And hearing him on Joe Rogan's podcast, he feels like he's already the title holder, man. He feels like he's ready for that shot.
Yeah, see, okay, so this is the weird thing with Nathan Diaz, because he's at a point in his career where he is a needle mover. He is a draw. He's a money fight. And
even losing, it doesn't matter. He'll draw the needle. Like, look, Dana White talks about Nick Diaz coming back, and it's a headline on every single website.
Man. See, but you're exactly right. We report on what gets clicks, and it's Nathan Diaz and Nick Diaz quite a bit. Nate is at a point where he is a needle mover, and like you said, needle movers have different rules in the UFC. You don't follow the normal rules. Nate is not ranked at welterweight, and he gets this kind of top contender fight. Nate could just fight for BMF titles, a rematch with Jorge, another trilogy with, Conor or something like that. He can just do money fights until he retires or something like that. And with the way the UFC does it, he can easily say, I'm just here to make money. I'm not here for title fights. And that would be completely appropriate for Nathan Diaz, finish to his career.
Yes, for sure. And the odds though, man, Leon Edwards is a minus 560. Nate Diaz is a
Ooh.
plus 475. Like those are big odds. If someone's laying down a ton of money, they might as well lay it down on that plus 475 for Nate Diaz, man. Like
Yeah, that's not a bad bet. He's an underdog, but that's not a bad one.
definitely. Now, co-main event. Rematch, Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno. I want to ask you before you break it down, how'd you have the first fight scored?
Oh, Figueredo all day. I think he clearly showed in that fight that he was the more effective fighter. That one round we had a draw. Moreno had round 4, and that would be about the only round I would give him. How did you score it?
Yeah, I had Figueiredo winning it as well. I was impressed by Brandon Moreno, to say the least. He proved that he's that upper echelon of the division. I didn't know it before that. Maybe the fight before that I knew it. I didn't think he was cream of the crop, top of the heap, whatever you want to call it. But he has proved his worth in that division, and he's going to be a top 3 guy probably for the rest of his career. If he doesn't get the title here, he will be fighting for a title again, I believe. That fight, though, yeah, I had it scored for Figueiredo. I wasn't disappointed by the decision, and I'm extremely excited for this fight this weekend. I'm going to let you break it down, and then I'm going to give my pick.
Perfect. No, thank you for that, Jeremy. Figueredo is a guy who fights as an all-in kind of guy. He's not the pure martial artist like we have with Leon Edwards or Georges St. Pierre, who's like, I'm just here to score points. I'm going to beat you on a decision. Figueiredo really does see this as a Mortal Kombat style fight, and he is trying to decapitate people when he's out there. His style reminds me a lot of Takanori Gomi, and that means it comes with a lot of the same flaws as Takanori Gomi, where he'll throw haymakers, he'll throw diving haymakers, and when he misses, he's insanely out of position. And you know what I mean? And if it lands, yeah,
sure.
You won the fight. But like he's so far out of position sometimes. However, what I really see with Figueiredo and Moreno is a better boxer. His hands are better, but he doesn't have the other parts of the stand-up game in terms of octagon control. He doesn't pick his exchanges. Figueiredo was choosing all the exchanges. He was leading the dance. And for that, I really just think Figueiredo's a better fighter on the feet. However, I want to throw the Jussier Formiga. Jussier Formiga fought both of these guys, and he out-grappled Figueiredo, and then Moreno out-grappled Jussier Formiga. But if Moreno can follow the game plan of closing the distance on a clinch, getting a takedown, and just doing kind of positional control, he can absolutely win this fight. But he didn't do that in the last title fight, so it makes me wonder if he's going to follow the game plan in this fight. Now, it's a pretty tough pick, 51-49 kind of thing. I've seen Moreno as high as plus 160. That seems like a safe bet, but I am going to pick Figueiredo probably by decision. But how do you see it? What do you think?
I'm leaning the other way. I'm going to take the underdog. I'm leaning Brandon Moreno. He impressed me the last fight. As I said, I didn't think he won, but I think he's going to make those minor adjustments that need to be made to make this fight his. I think he won't dictate the pace because no one dictates the pace against Figueiredo. He's a firecracker in there. You never know what's going to happen. He explodes extremely fast. But I think, like you said, against that Jussier Formiga opponent out there, the out-grappling of Brandon Moreno, if he explodes and Moreno is able to keep the distance close while he explodes without getting punished, he might be able to make this one a grappling exchange, take it to the ground, and do his work there because I see him being able to hold him there a little bit longer than he did in the first fight. As you said, also, a better boxer in there. If he can keep his punches at range, if he can utilize his footwork and land the clean strikes from the outside, not necessarily counterpunching, because that's going to be tough. You will counterpunch against Figueiredo because, as you said, he throws wild punches, and that'll happen as he's coming inside. If he can feint and make his way inside, I think that's how he finishes the fight. I don't think he'll necessarily stop the fight, but he will be able to hurt him with his punches. He will be able to get the fight to the ground, and I see him leaning and edging out a slight decision against Figueiredo, and we're going to hear Bruce Buffer say, "And new UFC champion."
No, I think that's a really fair assessment. There is a game plan out there that Moreno can use, and he can play to his strengths in this fight. It's just a matter of, will he be good enough to use those tools? Will he be able to do it? And this is why it's a great fight. It is a great matchup.
like you say, there is a game plan, but every strike makes that game plan go down a notch.
That's
Like
right.
they
That's
say,
exactly right.
jiu-jitsu guys, a black belt gets punched, he becomes a brown belt. He gets punched again, he becomes a purple belt. Let's talk the main
No,
event. Another one, a very close first fight. Israel Adesanya, Marvin Vettori. I scored the first fight for Izzy. He's just that damn good, man. I think his striking is on another level. Vettori brings the power, but I don't think, I saw a meme out there. We saw the booby on Israel Adesanya had the weigh-in yesterday. You know what that means. That means he's going to bring the power, he's going to bring the precision, and he's going to bring the win to the octagon. Israel Adesanya is going to continue to hold that middleweight championship. How do you see this one going?
I do co-sign with you as well. When I started breaking down this fight, I went back and watched all their fights since their first fight. And in that time, I really wanted to pick Vettori because he does a lot of good. He's a southpaw and he fights against orthodox fighters quite well. He does all the right things that you want to see a southpaw fighter do, controlling the lead hand. He has his foot on the outside and he lands a cross. He landed on Hermanson. He scored knockdowns with it. And he also does fairly good takedowns on the inside against strikers. Has a lot of the right tools. And it just won't be enough. His tools aren't sharp enough to beat Israel Adesanya. People struggle so much with Israel. He has layers to his defense. Someone like Paulo Costa never even got through the first layer of defense. He couldn't get an entry. Someone like Robert Whittaker, who's extremely good, could have a proper entry and still just couldn't land anything. So there's a few things working in Vettori's favor, such as Israel struggles with southpaws quite a bit. His worst performances are southpaws: Vettori, Anderson Silva, and Yoel Romero. But I absolutely can't see. I mean, Vettori doesn't even defend leg kicks, kind of thing.
I think his fight against I think his fight against Anderson Silva was brilliant.
Okay,
It was on both sides, both guys. It was a striking masterpiece.
Well, okay, let me put it like this, and it was a striking masterpiece. But Anderson Silva was getting knocked out fight to fight.
Yes,
and then Israel Adesanya was knocking out orthodox fighters fight to fight. And then he couldn't finish Israel. I mean, he couldn't finish Anderson Silva.
Makes sense.
He clearly won that fight, but in terms of where their skills were, I don't know. You just kind of wanted more. I don't disagree with you, though. Yes. That's a fair assessment. But no, I completely see Israel. He can pick whatever he wants in this fight. Leg kicks, he's going to be controlling the hands in this fight. He's going to be controlling the center. He needs to keep the distance. Vettori's going to be going for takedowns, especially those inside trip takedowns, which we've seen him do a couple of times against guys like Kevin Holland. But I don't think his takedown or his ability to hold position will hold. I think this is Israel's fight all day.
You think he finishes it?
That one I'm not sure, because Vettori is quite tough, isn't he? He's got a big old head, right?
But sometimes that means it's easier to knock out.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not 100%. I mean, Vettori, we also know he's tough because his striking defense is sometimes weak. We've seen him get hit a ton of times, right? So I'm not sure if Israel really can finish him off. The crazy thing is, would you pick Vettori against anyone else in the top 5 at middleweight? Do you pick him against Till? Do you pick him against Whittaker?
It's tough. I could see, I see him and Whittaker being very similar in ways. I think they both like to really reach on their strikes and I think that could fall against Vettori against Izzy tonight. I think if he overextends in his punches, Israel could finish him with a counter strike. A nice little check hook. Even a straight jab as he steps to the side, because he overextends. We've seen it a lot, and the same thing that happened with Robert Whittaker that's the same way that Izzy knocked him down and rocked him, was because he was overextending, diving forward on his punches, which you can't do against a guy like Israel Adesanya, who has the K1 background. I mean, his striking and his background when it comes to fighting off of his back foot is just way too good. Now, Vettori against Robert Whittaker is a fun fight because it's just going to be two guys throwing caution to the wind until someone gets knocked out. Does he win that fight? Robert Whittaker actually, in his last fight, impressed me the most I've ever seen. He didn't overextend on his punches. They were crisp, clean, straight shots. No winging hooks, no leaning to the side and just throwing caution to the wind. But against a guy like Vettori, I think he sort of gets stuck in that wheelhouse after getting punched the way Vettori punches, and it's just going to be like two guys in a phone booth throwing, beating the hell out of each other. Who wins is whoever lands the cleanest shot. Does he beat Darren Till? Probably. That's my assessment.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all. I think Robert Whittaker definitely would get it done in a Vettori fight. And I mean, this was supposed to be Robert Whittaker going into this matchup.
Yes.
Like this, and that's the fight we really
did he
want.
turn it down? Because I heard some.
That's our understanding.
That's what I heard as well. I just saw it the other day. Was Dana said Robert Whittaker was offered a title fight, I believe, and said he didn't want it. So I don't know what the deal with that is. What happens next then? Does he fight the loser of this? Does he where does he go?
There's no one left in the division. Like between Israel and Whittaker, they've beaten like 9 out of the top 10 guys right now. Like there's no one left at that point, right?
Yeah, I know. It's pretty crazy. Do you see Vettori beating those guys?
No, I would honestly probably not pick Vettori in any of those matchups. I would maybe pick Till, but I would definitely be picking Whittaker. I mean, even Jared Cannonier.
That's who I was just going to say, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good matchup. Derek Brunson is he's tough to pick for because he's, sometimes a little bit inconsistent. But do you think coming into this fight, I'll throw it back to you here, Marvin Vettori, he's an underdog. Is he a good betting underdog?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all, actually. I think this is the one fight where the favorite is a guaranteed. And it's weird to say because in MMA anything can happen, but I don't think Israel is the guy to go against in the middleweight division. Moving up to light heavyweight, that's a completely different ballpark because he didn't cut any weight. He didn't even put on muscle. He basically just ate the way he ate and went up there and thought he was going to do well, and that did not go in his favor. Jan is just on another level and way friggin' bigger than him. But looking at the rankings here, even a guy that is just on the cusp, he's ranked at 8, and he's looked very good in his last few outings, is Uriah Hall. And I think that he could be interesting if he gets through his next opponent. And I think he's a tough fight for Marvin Vettori even.
Yeah, no, exactly. Of like just in his style, Marvin Vettori is very meat and bones, isn't he? He's a very basic kind of level striker. He has one kind of one layer to his defense, and if you break through it, that's it. He's got one layer to his striking kind of thing. He's a very meat and potatoes kind of striker. But yeah, I would pick Uriah Hall to win that fight, absolutely. But that's just me. Who's Hall's next opponent?
That's a good question. Let's look it up.
Let me look it up.
He does have a fight booked, I believe. He is taking on, if my computer...
Sean Strickland is what I have here at...
Yes, which is also a tough fight for Uriah Hall because Strickland has looked good in his last few outings as well. But that's a big step up for Strickland too.
Yeah, that's a tough one to pick. I mean, I'll have to go back and watch some tape to really properly break it down. But Uriah Hall seems to be in a good mental space right now. And that's what we've really always wanted from his career. He's such a good, talented fighter. It just seems like mentally he never had it together. And now with this run that he's on, it seems like we're seeing the Uriah Hall that we've always wanted to see.
For sure. Let's talk quickly again about this main event then, and what you just said. Uriah Hall mentally is in the right headspace. Let's talk mentality in this because we've seen at the press conference, we saw at the weigh-ins, Marvin Vettori's headspace is like a caged friggin' animal. He's lunging at Izzy. He's trying to get in his face. They had to remove him from the press conference. Do you think that's going to play a factor into this?
It's tough to, and you and I have watched mixed martial arts for so long. It's tough to tell where performative kind of like people are just trying really hard and they're doing a performance versus genuinely kind of pissed off, right? And I don't know where Marvin Vettori really lands in that scale of, is he just putting on an act? But if he is going to charge in as the way we've seen like Kelvin Gastelum was trying to do or Robert Whittaker was trying to do, I don't think that's going to bode well in their favor. I think that plays right into Israel Adesanya's game all night long. You need to be a legitimately better striker. You need to be chaining your takedowns against the guy. You need to be controlling the range. You can't just be bum rushing in. But what do you think on the mentality side? Israel's been pretty relaxed all week.
That's what I was going to say, because it's very, very interesting the way this goes down, because Izzy's not trash talking. He's not doing any of that stuff. He's not being like Conor McGregor was with, say, Jose Aldo, where he got into Jose's head so bad that he made Jose fight a completely different fight for those 16 seconds than any other fight. He came bum rushing in. Now, Izzy's not saying a word to Marvin Vettori. He's not, other than the fact that I'm the champ and you're not, bitch, and stuff like that. Like, he's not mentally getting into his head unless he's doing it without saying anything. And is that the case? Because that's very interesting. That's a very interesting way of playing mind games.
Yeah, I think Israel, he's a little bit headstrong in a good way, in terms of, like, he's been in big fights in his life. He's done an interim versus champion. He's been in multiple champion. He's done champion versus champion. He fought Alex Pereira twice. Like, you're not going to shake this guy mentally, I don't think. There's not much that you can say to really knock him out of his game. But Marvin Vettori, this is the biggest fight of his life. If he's going to be nervous or screw anything up, now's the time that's going to happen.
For sure. That does it for our UFC 263 live breakdown. Before we go, support for this MMA Sucka Live episode is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. We don't know if Marvin Vettori had that because his Venom shorts were on backwards. Very interesting. Maybe if he had taken them off and changed them around, we would have seen if Manscaped were there. But Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. We have an exclusive offer for our listeners here. 20% off plus free shipping with the code MMASucka. That's all caps, MMASucka at manscaped.com. Get your grooming needs in. Tim, I want to thank you for joining me, man. We went about 45 minutes almost here, and some great technical breakdowns on your part. Just let people know where they can find you on social media. It does tell you down below over there. My hand is off the screen, somewhere over there, at Tim Wheaton MMA. But if you want to just let them know any shout-outs, any plugs for your articles, whatever you got going on, man, the floor is yours.
No, cheers for that. Jeremy, thanks so much for having us on. I really do appreciate it. Definitely, guys, if you're listening, check out MMAsucka.com. We'll have everything there. But at Tim Wheaton MMA, whether you're on Twitter or Instagram, that handle will get you all my links. We have a couple of podcasts up this week. We have an article up this week. We got the live stream going right now. There's so much Tim content out there. You're going to be absolutely sick of me. I wrote a good article regarding how the UFC flyweight division is reflective of what the dark era was in MMA. I won't talk about it here. You have to go read it. But yeah, Tim Wheaton MMA, check it out. Jeremy, thanks so much for having me on,
Definitely, buddy. Make sure you check out UFC 263. We will be back with an MMA Sucka Live next week. Not sure if it's going to go down Saturday, but this time sort of works for me. So hopefully we can get a few other guys on and make it a bit of a roundtable. But this one was a fantastic discussion. Check me out at JeremyBrand604 on Twitter, at Jeremy_604 on Instagram, and make sure you check out MMASucka.com for all your news, rumors, interviews. I've got a few lined up this week, actually. One could be with the greatest of all time. So check it out. Check out UFC 263 tonight. We will be back soon. Peace.